experts in your field, and you may have prepared with a point of view for the audience today. Maybe I'll let you speak. I will just do a quick introduction about you, and your speaker biography is already there for the WEF audiences to read about later. And then you can speak about this topic, and then I'm sorry, oops.
Sure.
Hello. I'm there. I've gone to the wrong one, is it? Yeah, I'm already there. Yeah, we started. Yeah. I'm sorry, they're trying to remind us that our session is on. So, I think let's begin without losing more time. Yeah, and then I'll maybe ask some questions if we still have some time at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have the pleasure on behalf of the Women Economic Forum to welcome you, Maria Santiago Valentin. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Thank you for staying up all night to address this audience. We're deeply grateful for that. We know what it means to work across the world. We are keen to hear your thoughts on this great topic of mainstreaming mental health conversations and issues. And you have the perfect background. You've been a learning disabilities consultant. You're a mindfulness educator. You've done some great work in understanding social aspects of how some Caribbean colonies developed, Puerto Rico and Martinique in the Caribbean. And I think that was part of your work as part of your PhD at Sorbonne in Paris.
Well, what happened was, let me explain.
Right.
I did my master's in I have two masters. One is in translation, but the work that I did 23 years ago is being used for another work.
Oh, wonderful. Right.
At La Sorbonne. They're using the translation I did and the structure of language to explain the work of Dr. Rafael Confian. Yes.
Right. Wonderful.
So I never thought that was going to happen. It just happened.
And then you also wrote a book on bipolar disorders. Very interesting.
Yes, I have it here. I have the English version, and then I have the Spanish version too.
Oh, wonderful. And is this more an academic text, Maria, or is it for common people to understand what goes on with their families and children? And
well, it was it started from a research paper that I created, and then I presented that paper, and then I was asked if I could turn that paper into a book. Well, then what I did was I expanded the section of accommodations for students that have mental illness or bipolar disorder in the classroom, so they can benefit from those accommodations to achieve and have a successful life.
Wonderful. And then also you've done a lot of work in climate justice. Chairman of your nonprofit in New Jersey, and so that's amazing.
Well, that happened as a result of being an activist for more than 2 decades. And it was not because I chose to be. It's just a way of life. It is. You are concerned about your community, about what's impacting your family, and you become involved in those issues. It's not that you decided. And then from being an activist in education, I joined a group of global work on climate change, and that's how I got involved in environmental justice and climate justice. And the organization that we created, I would say, there was an organization as a result of that I started in 2017, but we are restructuring the mission and the model because we want to be able to provide humanitarian relief and help advocacy and in education in areas that are affected because of the use of fossil fuels.
Right. Yeah.
And now my team is expanding. So I have from New York, from New Jersey, from Virginia, I have in Florida, I have in Puerto Rico, and now I have in Trinidad Tobago. And we want to, it sounds, if we, by creating this organization and making a nonprofit, I think we will be able to write the proposals and the grants to provide the resources that the communities need.
Right.
Yeah.
So as the
That's what we
expression
want to
goes,
do.
may your tribe increase, may your power increase. You're doing such good work. Right. So, right. So Maria, let's come to the topic today. In my little research on mental health issues, apparently about 800 million people in the world have some type of mental disorder. So that's at least
Yes.
about 1 in 9, which is pretty high.
In US,
Yeah.
4 people, one has a mental disorder.
Right.
Diagnosed.
And can you help us understand what we classify as mental disorder? Because sometimes you can be born of a genetic defect, and you could be medically, therefore, ready for
Well,
medical disorder, or
and that's why the mainstreaming of this conversation is coming now, because now mental illness was usually seen in the past in a capsule, in a
Right,
nutshell, in a little silo, and
right,
there's physiological stresses that impact and chronic diseases that cause mental health, and it goes the other way around. And
right,
then we have to look at determinants in society that also create the conditions for developing mental health, like poverty,
exactly,
like living in environments that are not sustainable,
right,
like unemployment,
right,
like coming back from war.
right,
So those are events that are also impacting the health of a person, also the ability of getting accessing healthcare.
right.
Mental health in the past, well, I was looking at what our countries are doing for
Mm-hmm,
addressing mental health and
mm-hmm,
making the conversation mainstream, and there are two trends. The first trend is not normalizing, but breaking up the stigma and the misinformation in the family
mm-hmm,
and at the community level, but which is the bottom-up approach,
right,
and also the top-down approach, which
right,
is making changes and advocating for changes in institutions with
right,
legislation, with laws, where the voice of the individuals who and the caregivers who have those disabilities are part of the decision making.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right. So you're saying
I don't know
both
if
the
I answered.
bottom up and top down approach.
Yeah, there are two.
Yeah.
Yes, because if we want to provide for those vulnerables, the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable population,
Right,
and we need to listen to them. What are their needs? How
right,
can we help you access health care?
right,
What do you need from us? And then that's the bottom-up approach. And
right,
also giving them, facilitating the conversation with them to remove and minimize the stigma, because those are conceptualizations that they many cultures, including the
right,
Latino culture, we have created because of the way we see our culture, and
right,
also
right,
religious, and it could bring ideas of feelings of fear, embarrassment, fear of getting married or having
right,
the ability of having a family, to keep a job.
right,
So we need to go to those populations to tell them, look, you can recover. And Scotland in 2008, they did the bottom-up approach, and they target a communities that were more vulnerable. And after 9 weeks of a training that they did,
Right.
53% of the individuals who were diagnosed with mental illness changed the way they look at themselves, and they had hope in their ability of recovery. So the conversation, it has to be mainstream to them, but also it has to come to the institutions.
Right.
The, the top-down approach will be okay as long it, it includes the voice of them, because
Right.
they are the only ones who can tell us what they need.
So, Maria, I want to just pick on that point of view. Clearly, it is understandable that
Mhm.
social factors like unemployment or poverty will increase,
Accelerate. They can
accelerate.
accelerate or hinder
Yeah,
the
but my point was today we are also living in a world with a lot of material prosperity. And we
yes.
find even in the rich families that because of habits or excessive social media influence or some other type of peer pressure, that mental health is increasing even in young adults. So what is your view on that?
My take on that, yes, we see an increase in youth, and with suicidal thoughts and 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 even attempts, and and that's the reason. Yeah, we see that happening. Social media has to do. There were things in our times that were not happening. We have an issue with a friend, we solve it the next day. Now things
Right.
go in the minute in social media, and the whole world knows about it. And those ages, the teenagers are the most vulnerable. Those brains are still in develop until after 20, I think they're 26, 27. They're
Right.
still, their brain's still developing.
Right.
And that's one of the goals of the United Nations when they wrote a report for the inclusion and the awareness of mental health, to mainstream the conversation, and
Right.
is to include courses about mental health in schools
Right.
as part of the physical education or gym class, and also a required courses in colleges, at
Right.
least one. Um, the National Association of Mental Illness in the United States, they reported that 64% of the students that of dropout have depression, and 50 report anxiety. So it's true, it's happening in college. It's
Right.
true.
Right.
They are, and those are our brightest kids.
Right.
And they are suffering from mental illness. So what they're trying to do is to expand the ability of nurse practitioners to be able to write prescriptions for them so they can access them at a low cost.
Right.
But yes, it's happening. There's a lot of competition um, um, between, they want to achieve, and sometimes it's a different world that they're living, and that we didn't live that way, and everything that happens to them is usually it goes back in social media, and that targets their self-esteem, and they go back and they find their peers are so important, they're
Right.
very vulnerable. Mhm.
Right. Right. Maria, may I just pause you for a second? We have
Sure.
our second speaker actually online. She's just joined in. May I take this a moment to welcome Sheenu Java. Sheenu is a director and co-founder of Apex Hospitals, a bunch of hospitals in the state of Rajasthan in India. But beyond that, has had a formidable track record writing about healthcare and leading magazines. She's presented at several conferences. And Sheenu, if I'm right, you're currently halfway through your PhD, right? On health.
That's right.
Right. So Sheenu, we just began talking, Maria and I, on this whole concept of mainstreaming mental health, the fact that it's still very taboo, the fact that about 800 million people in the world still suffer, and you living in India know how rapidly that is now coming to fore, even with the celebrities and everyone, right? So what's your take? What do you think is the issue? Why now? Or it's perhaps not late? And then finally, I'll get to both of you towards the end to figure out what are 2, 3 things we can do to fix this.
So, hi everybody. I should thank WEF that they have picked up this topic because it's a very, very important topic. How did I get interested in it? A little bit of history. So I was working with the NHS UK and I was working as a clinical auditor. And I came to know that there is a subject called postnatal depression and antenatal depression. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's a culture shock.
Right.
You know, you're becoming a mother.
Right.
What's there to be depressed about? You know, the typical mindset that you have.
Right.
And then I was quite curious. So my mom's a doctor and she's a gynecologist. So my parents are doctors. So we have a whole lot of, doctors back home. So I spoke to her and I spoke to them and they said there's nothing like this, there's nothing like this.
Okay.
And I was like, that's not possible because people are talking about it. And I started reading about it. And the more I read, the more I realized that this is like it's a huge, dark, morbid corner.
Correct.
And, it's people do not know about it. And there is so much that is lurking underneath. And that's how I got more and more curious in spite of my hospital management background. And when I got a chance to do a PhD, I just sort of jumped headlong and I wanted to research antenatal and postnatal, that's perinatal depression and maternal health within Rajasthan when I came back to India.
Right. Right.
So that aside, depression and perinatal depression or depression, maternal mental health is just a little drop in the ocean of the whole gamut of mental health.
Right.
There's bipolar disorder and there's Alzheimer's and there's mood disorder, there's anxiety. But the thing is that with all of these medical conditions, they're known as medical conditions, people are oriented and inducted and they understand it's a medical condition. And that really is where the whole mainstreaming conversation question.
Shinu, are you there? Maria, can you hear me?
Yes, I unmuted myself
Oh, sorry.
when she's speaking, so there's no background noise from my part.
Oh, Shinu's back. Okay. Right. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Shinu, do you want to say something?
Yeah. So the whole problem is when you observe the onset of depression, that is not really when depression actually happens.
Right.
So it's not like an influenza. It's not like a virus hits you and you get the cold and it's exhibited and then you take a flu shot and then you're fine.
Right.
So in the scientific language, there is a long period which is called a prodrome. And that is when the depression is actually undiagnosed, but it's there within you for years. And then with a snap of a certain onset, a trigger, it gets exhibited. So when you say that 850 million people are afflicted with depression, you do realize that what you're looking at is, as a cliche is, just the top of the iceberg. Okay. Because the prodrome and the people afflicted with it are actually underneath. And that actually is the cause of the worry, not the diagnosis.
Good Lord, we have much to worry about, yeah. And so, so my question then back is that, why is it that issues about the mind are not taken as seriously as issues of the body? So for example, you'll find more heart surgeons than brain surgeons, just as a broad depiction of our interest in fixing mental disorders or understanding mental disorders. So it's just the social taboo that holds investment in education or treatment back, or is it just that we don't have the skills as a world to understand?
I would peg it down to two things primarily. I mean, if you look at the genesis, it's come from the Greek mythology. And from there, it was people who had any kind of a mental disorder were considered to be mad. And that is a social stigma which has been ingrained in our DNA from years and years and years. And it's going to take a while to break out of it, to come out of it and start talking about it, which is why conversation is very important.
Right.
The other problem is that if you look at for any chronic disease, if you look at the commercial world, they're not willing to pay for it.
Right.
So is any health insurance willing to pay for depression? Is any health insurance willing to pay for malnutrition?
Right.
They're not, because there is no clear-cut outcome. There is no quick outcome, and it's a chronic problem.
Correct.
And that is the reason why I think this has been unnoticed. It has been, so to say, I would go as far as saying it has been curbed. It has not been taken seriously. But associations, NGOs, private bodies, the WEF, there's so many people now who are coming to the fore and starting to talk about it. But I think mainstreaming, the whole thing about mental health is going to happen with two things. The first is that we start taking it seriously in the hospitals and every healthcare setting, where we start screening for it. And once screened, if a patient is admitted, apart from working on his body part which is afflicted with a clear-cut diagnosis, we also work on the mental well-being, because the mind actually controls the body, and we've got to start understanding that. And if you start working on the mind, then half your battle is won, because if the person wants to get better, and if he has a mental well-being, then the outcomes will definitely be great. And the second is that the payer, from the insurance side or from the various bodies that are actually paying, if they start incorporating this within their payment system, then automatically the tide is just going to change overnight.
So, in fact, before you came in, Shinu, Maria and I were talking. I mean, the very technologies we're enjoying, right? For example, doing this virtual or digital Women Economic Forum. Maria in the US, in New Jersey, perhaps you're in Rajasthan, I don't know where you are, or we're in Bangalore. So the point is, technology enables all of us to have a conversation. And yet you have social media, so rich in its visual display, in its instantaneous relay of where one is or what one is doing, and yet could become a comparator when someone says he or she has a better life in a friend circle than I do or something. And that could also spiral you into some sense of a complex, right? Or trigger that thing that you say has been lurking.
Absolutely.
So how do we manage it? Because I don't think technology is going away. We have to live with it. Millennials perhaps will be almost born alongside a phone. So how do we manage in a sense, the good with the bad around technology as a trigger for mental disorders?
I would say that it's a double-edged sword. With one side, it hurts you. The other side, you pry out and you carve out a path for yourself, so to speak. So because there is social media and things are hitting at you now more than they ever were before, but also now you have a much, much wider circle, and you have a much, much more potential to interact with the right kind of people. Now, there's another thing which is happening now that you put it. It's not just the people whom you know, but there are two other ways in which technology can help you with mental health issues. The first is that when we meet a doctor, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they give us certain appointments, right?
Right.
Now it is when I'm feeling depressed and I feel like taking that extreme step, I am not going to wait for an appointment, because it just happens when it happens. What if that treatment were to be available through technology, that choice on your phone?
Right.
So this is an idea that I've been dabbling with, and I'm working on it and trying to undertake 2 studies where for some people that choice is available. Right. And when they are feeling like that, is it possible for them to approach people, or can AI be built within the platform where they can seek help? That's one thing. The other is it possible for people to talk to people without really knowing them, but because they want to talk? Because if you've noticed, even during the COVID times, what's really hitting people is that they're not able to be social. Right. And I think being social is a very, very important part of being a human. And if we are able to explore that through technology far and wide, then I think that we will be using technology in a different way to be there when we need it, rather than to be there when they think we need them.
That's a very clever way to put that, Shinu. We appreciate that. And Maria, I should bring you in. Do you want to say something there?
I want to pitch on what she said. I have a chapter in my book about digital psychiatry.
Right.
It's one of the approaches that they're exploring still in US, and it's developed by Harvard University. And it's using the phone and an application to monitor and self-regulate the way they feel and send that information to their doctor. It's still in studies because remember that some information can leak online, and there are confidentiality issues, and we don't want, they don't want that information to go to the wrong person or the wrong recipient. And also what will happen if a clinician is not available when they are receiving a message from their patient, and that will cause your doctor a liability issue for the doctor as well. So they're working on tuning what she said. Is they're trying to work on monitoring the emotions. A patient can self-assess and survey their emotions they have on day by day and send that to their clinician. I don't know when this is going to become public. Is still working on those legalities.
That's the future. That's the future.
Right.
Yeah, you are. You're just saying it, and you're a doctor, and yes, it's coming up.
Yeah.
So, Maria and Shiva, unfortunately, I think the clock has run out on us.
Yes, it was very interesting. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you so much. And I have one final honor to do on behalf of the Women Economic Forum as a token of our appreciation for your genius, inspiration, and ideas. And clearly, Maria, in your case, you've been up all night to talk to us. We would like to confer the award of Iconic Woman Creating a Better World for All. So congratulations to both of you. Well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Stay well. Stay safe.
Hello.
Hi, Linda. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Very good.
Great.
So thank you for waiting. Did you have a useful half an hour, or you just drifted around it?
I had a useful half an hour, thank you.
So firstly, I think on behalf of the Women Economic Forum, thank you for making the time to speak with us. Clearly, I think you're a woman of much accomplishment, as your extensive and very impressive resume suggests. So just to introduce you to the audience, we have Linda Trump speaking to us from the UK. Are you in London, Linda, or where are you?
That's right, yes, I'm in London.
Perfect. And you run something called, you're a founder of Mothers in Business, an interesting campaign to help mothers balance their work and life, I think, or their aspirations and their nurturing spirit back home.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I read you're a first Dan black belt in Taekwondo. So should I put on my mask or shield?
I think you're far enough. You're fine. You're perfectly.
I'm safe. Okay, perfect. Okay, and I will say all the good stuff. So, but what I found very interesting, Linda, was your ability to work the world of Taekwondo, which taught you the aspects of what you call the tenets of courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and your indomitable spirit. Right? And that's something you apply to your professional and personal life. And I found that deeply interesting. Sometimes we live in parallel universes which don't even connect. And here you manage to glean the best from one world and put it to the other. The other thing I want to just use as part of the introduction is that you are the author of a fairly well-selling book, I think, on Amazon UK or elsewhere. The Mind of Female Entrepreneurs, How to Think and Act to Succeed in Business. So on that note, Linda, welcome again. And what we could do is we have a good half an hour, we could out of the 26 and a half minutes for you to speak. if you feel like a sip of water, I will then break in with a question. I'll take that as a nudge or a note, but otherwise it's all yours. I don't want to break your flow. I'm sure you have a certain point of view to express today. And then we will perhaps, I'll ask you a bunch of questions towards the end as a wrap up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for that lovely, warm introduction. And thank you to the Women's Economic Forum for having me on this platform. It's an absolute honor. And I'd also want to just take a moment to acknowledge anyone that is in the room watching this, because they could be in any other room at this time of the day and they have chosen to come and listen to my talk. So I'm honored that you're here to listen to me today. So thank you so much. So as we're going to be spending a bit of time together, I just want to tell you a bit about myself.
Right.
As you know, I am Linda Attram, the founder of Mothers in Business. And I founded this business approximately 2 years ago, and we're based in London in the UK.
Right.
Now, I help mothers to have more success at home and in their business when juggling between motherhood and business at the same time. And when I saw the title of this particular segment, Walking the Tightrope, I was like, yes, I really want to be part of this, because it is literally like walking on a tightrope when you're balancing the two.
Right.
Because being a mother on its own has its own challenges. And then when you add a business or a career on top, it can be quite overwhelming. So as for myself, I am a proud mother of 3 precious diamonds, otherwise known as my children.
Right.
And they're aged 12, 15 and 19. I'm happily married, and I've been married for 20 years, but I've also been in business over 21 years. And that's why, that's why I call my business Mothers in Business, because I have that experience of the two. So my core business is in property, in real estate. And I buy property, I renovate them, and then I rent them out to people that can't afford their own homes.
Fantastic.
So thank you. That is my core business. And as well as that, I am a public speaker, and I am the co-author of the book that you mentioned earlier, which is called The Mind of the Female Entrepreneurs, How to Think and Act and Succeed in Business. It's an Amazon best-selling book. So if you are interested, then check it out on Amazon.
Fantastic.
And like you said earlier on, I am a Taekwondo martial artist, and I'm actually from a family of Taekwondo martial artists. So my children, aged 12, 15 and 19, and my husband were all black belts.
Jesus.
So
no intruders at home. You don't need burglar alarms and all that, right?
So, you know, a family that trains together stays together. And it's interesting, you know, just talking about this topic about, walking on a tightrope and how I got into Taekwondo, because I've been practicing Taekwondo for 4 years. And the reason why I got into it was because I was fed up of being the Uber driver, constantly, as most mothers do, drive their kids around to lots of different activities and watch them on the sidelines. And I wanted to stop, washing their uniforms and have one to wash for my own. So I decided to go into the class, and I was the eldest person in the class. I felt like the grandma. Everyone was all teenagers, but I just stuck with it. I thought I'd do it as a bit of exercise, and eventually I started doing competitions and grading and got to my black belt. And I always use that in my story to encourage other mothers that, because you are a mother, you don't need to lose yourself in motherhood. You can still pursue your dreams. You can still, pursue your goals and inspire your children, because our children often do as they see rather than what they're told. And so if we can inspire our children through our actions, I feel that that's much more effective.
Right.
So that's just a bit about me, but my life hasn't always been this great.
Mm-hmm.
And as a young child, and my earliest memory of childhood is going back to around the age of 5 or 6, I would sit at my window, perched on the windowsill, watching people go by, watching people full of confidence. And I was very shy. I had a lot of low self-esteem, and I didn't really know who I was. I didn't have an identity. And I would often think, how are these people so confident? How do they walk so tall and they just know what to say at the right time? And that took me right through my childhood and into school. And instead of focusing on my education at school, I focused on trying to be popular because I felt so low. I wanted to be in with the cool gang.
Right.
And that had a very detrimental impact on my education, because I actually ended up leaving school with no English and no maths qualifications.
Really? Yeah.
And so when I left school, I obviously realized that that was not a cool decision to make. So I went and I got myself re-educated up to university level, and I got my degree in human resources management. So as well as everything else that I've told you that I've done, I also have an 18-year career in human resources management.
Wonderful.
Now, when I first started my very first job, although I got through the interview process, I was still very lacking in confidence and low self-esteem. I didn't feel I was good enough. I obviously felt I was good enough for the job at hand, but I didn't feel confident enough to have conversations with other people. And so if I was asked to do a particular task, I just get on with it. And I worked for a very well-known fashion house in London in an admin role. So my boss would tell me what to do and I'd get on with it. But when it came to lunchtime and it was time for a bit of socialization, you know, socializing with my other work colleagues, I didn't feel comfortable at all. And what I used to do at lunchtime, I would bring my own packed lunch in, I'd bring my sandwiches in, and I'd actually go to the toilet cubicle.
Really? Wow.
I'd close the door and I'd eat my lunch behind the closed toilet cubicle door, because I was so petrified of having a conversation with somebody. I had complete lack of confidence. The thought of having to think of something to say, and if it wasn't said in the right way or the perfect way, petrified me, which now for me is like not an issue. But that's
talking to your alter ego now, but no, this is amazing.
Yeah. So that was, you know, that was the journey that I had at that particular time. And it wasn't until a short while after that, my boss at the time and other people around me started to build me up, you know, build my own self-belief within me, and started giving me opportunities to progress my career in HR. And so after a period of time, you know, I became much more confident in myself and in my own well-being, because it was affecting my health as well. And so in my early 20s, I, you know, was much more confident. I was starting to socialize with friends. I began dating. I met my husband, and then we got married. And then in our marriage, we decided very early to have children. So I was elated, of course, you know, being a mother. And when I had my first child, it was fantastic. You know, you go through all of the emotions. But then after a short while, bang.
Right.
It was like I fell back to that 5 or 6 year old person, and I felt that I was losing my confidence again, because as you know, or any mothers that are watching, or you have a mother yourself, obviously, you'll know that being a mother is quite overwhelming. And it doesn't come with a handbook. It doesn't come with a guidebook. It doesn't, you know, you just get advice from other people's experiences as to what motherhood is like. And so when you're feeling that overwhelm and you feel like you're dangling in the air on this tightrope, not knowing how to balance between the two, because you're now responsible for another person.
Right.
But you're also got, you know, the responsibility of being a good wife, being a good homemaker. And if you're working as well, that becomes very, very overwhelming. And I was feeling very, very frustrated, because I was going back to being that 5 or 6 year old person after working so hard for so many years and building up my confidence, to now being in a position where I have to care for somebody else.
Right.
To feeling like I was a child again. It just didn't make sense to me.
Right.
And at the time I was working in HR, And then I was also starting the property business with my husband part-time. So I had a lot going on. And so I was pouring out a lot of love and attention for my child, for my home, for my husband, and trying to be this perfect mum that doesn't exist.
Right.
And as I was pouring everything out, I was emptying myself out. And, you know, for an example, like this glass, if I turn this glass upside down, it's empty. Nothing's coming out of it.
Absolutely.
And that's literally what mothers do. They pour everything out to looking after everyone. And if they don't fill their own glass, their own cup of energy, of love for themselves, then how are they going to be expected to look after others?
Correct.
And that's one of the key lessons that I like to share with mothers when I'm working with them, when I'm helping them to build themselves up, when they feel that they've lost themselves through motherhood, that it's important that we don't try and pour from an empty cup, because we need to have that energy to help others as well. And so that's one of the key reasons why I created Mothers in Business, because when I was a mother at the early stages of motherhood, I tried to have conversations with other mothers to find out if they were feeling the same way as me, because I was going through this mum guilt as well when I was on this tightrope, because I was feeling, you know, am I being selfish for pursuing my dreams, my goals, my aspirations, in trying to create financial freedom for myself and for my family? Because there were times when, in the early days, when we purchased property and we couldn't afford cleaners or maintenance people, so we would bring the children along with us on our journey. We'd be sitting down, they'd be sitting down on these rugs in our apartments while we were cleaning them away. Right. And I would feel so guilty seeing my children sitting on these rugs while I was cleaning these apartments, getting them ready for rental, thinking I should be out in the park. I shouldn't be here. I should be, you know, playing with my children. And that guilt stayed with me for a long period of time. And I know that guilt happens to a lot of mothers that are, you know, that have careers as well, that have businesses. But my message to all mothers that feel that guilt is take your kids along with you on that journey, because you might think that they're bored or they might not be interested, but they actually are, well, certainly for my kids, they get very, very inspired and they look forward to being part of that journey. Even when my kids are on school holidays now, you know, it's a balancing act to manage the home, manage the business and be a good mum. So I bring my kids along with me. So if I have to do a property inspection or I'm doing a property viewing, they come along as well. And they learn the business. So it's great to bring your children along in your journey. So like I said early on, I couldn't find any other mothers that, you know, were feeling the way that I was feeling. I'd speak to my own mother as well, and she didn't say that, you know, she had those sort of problems. So I was thinking, oh, it's just me. You know, everyone else seems to be able to cope. It's just me.
Right.
Not realizing that a lot of mothers may or may not, you know, admit to this, but they try to be the perfect mum.
Right.
And so they don't want other people to realize that they're not coping. They don't want other people to realize that, you know, that they have these issues around their self-identity or lack of confidence, because they're so busy pouring out and helping others that they forget about themselves. And so my property business is actually run by mothers in business themselves. So my cleaners, my admin staff, they're all mothers and they all run their own businesses. They're all like virtual assistants. So I allow my staff to run my property business and I just, you know, dab in here and there. But my core focus now is to give back and to help other mothers and to give them the help that I would have loved in my early stages of motherhood. Sure. I am giving that opportunity to provide a very safe platform for mothers to come and talk about those challenges, because there's lots of mothers in businesses, organizations out there that will tell you how to set up a business plan, how to create your website, how to do this, how to do the books and all the rest of it. but there's not many that will talk about you as the mother, making sure that you and your mindset are, you know, at the level it needs to be to take on that additional challenge of a business. Because anyone can start up a business, but when you're a mother and you've got so many other things to deal with, I think it's so important that you get your own well-being at a good state, and that you're not pouring from that empty cup. Because the time that you need to invest in that business, as well as invest in yourself and in your children and in your family and in your home, is time that you're never going to get back. So if you invest in it wisely and you have the right tools and strategies to help you along the way, and I'm not saying that it's easy to, you know, to do all of these things at the same time, of course not, but if you have that support network and you have that safe platform, that something like what I've created, then it's a lot easier for you. And I have things like in our Mothers in Business platform, we have what we called our mastermind groups. So we have Mothers in Business mastermind groups.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and so we meet on a monthly basis, and we talk about any challenges or opportunities that we're having with our current businesses, but also in our home, not personal stuff, but, you know, but dealing with, you know, motherhood and business at the same time. So they have that outlet on a monthly basis to talk about those issues in a really safe and secure environment, because we only have a maximum of 6 people per group. So people don't feel that they're part of this large, massive group, and they feel intimidated to share. And so we hold each other accountable, we inspire each other, we empower each other, and we uplift each other, and we only bring positivity. And the great thing about these mastermind groups is that they are virtual. So any mother from around the world can join them. And it's great that you can connect with other women from around the world. And we also do what we call celebrating our wins, because as mothers, as many of the people listening here, you'll realize that it's, you know, we're very good at cheering our kids and saying, well done, and, you know, you've done great, or, you know, giving them a pat on the back for doing good with their exams.
Right.
How often do we as mothers pat ourselves on the back, or do we hear people congratulating us? Not often, because we're expected to be everything for everyone. So in our
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So in our mastermind groups, we have a specific section where we talk about what we feel like saying. So we can, you know, we can say, oh, you know, I managed to have a nutritious meal today. So rather than shoving it down my mouth and eating it really quickly because I had to go and, you know, bring my kid to school or to an after school activity, I actually chewed my food. I enjoyed it. I allowed the nutritious food to nourish the cells in my body, and I took my time and I drank a nice glass of water with it.
Right.
And we talk about those sorts of things, and we say, you know, celebrate a win. And the win doesn't have to be like, oh, I've just closed a $5,000 business deal. Right. It could be that, you know, I had a nice relaxing bath today without anyone disturbing me.
Right.
You know, or I had 5 minutes to read a book today, something like that. And so when we celebrate the wins, we don't go, oh, well done, Linda. No, we celebrate really, really hard. So we're, you know, stamping our feet, we're air punching in the air, we're all woohoo, you know, all giving them massive energy on these Zoom calls, because our masterminds are virtual. And it's a wonderful experience to see mothers just being them, just being themselves, and having that freedom to be themselves, but to express themselves and to talk about those challenges and opportunities that they're having, those sorts of things that I didn't get the opportunity to share with other mothers. And that's why I created Mothers in Business. And before I sort of finish off what I want to say is that, you know, these mastermind groups are virtual. They're open to everyone around the world in terms of mothers. And for anyone that is listening here today, my gift to you to say thank you for listening to me is I would love for you to come along to a free discovery session to experience the true power of a mastermind. You hear about masterminds all around the world, and they're of different sizes, some, you know, 20, 30, 50, 100. but ours are kept small to 6 intentionally, so that mothers don't feel intimidated, so that we can share and, you know, we can create that sisterhood to help support each other. And the sessions are free, so you can connect with me via this platform, or I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Linda Atram. And I also have a website, which is, you can see it on the banner, it's www.mothersinbusiness.co.uk. Now, I just would like to finish off with a quote for mothers that I created. Right. And it's just so, I think it fits in really well with the theme of this session. And it says, life has many parts. Being a mother is only one part of who you are. You matter just as much as any one of your family members. Your family deserves the very best of you, not what is left of you.
Brilliant, Linda. So we've had some tremendous speakers on this forum in the summit. You've gone practically extempore. It was like watching an Olympic runner, you know, just break away from the pack and just get to the finish line and touch the gold medal. Tremendous. So how many pages of your book do I now need to skip? Because I think you've speed read us through all that, right? I was saying, to save us a book. But tremendous. And I had a book idea for you for your second book, The Mind of Mothers, The Mind of Mothers, How to Think and Act and Succeed in Business. So it's not the mind of female.
That sounds awesome.
Right, right. So, because I just think it might just flip the coin and then say, if you're a mother and now planning to go into business.
Yes.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, because there are so many mothers out there that think about getting into business, but they're petrified to, you know, step out of their comfort zone, right? Because they don't want to have that additional mum guilt of spending that little less time away from their children, right, and focusing on their business. Right. But the way I look at it is that we are inspiring and uplifting our children, because if we have a circle of us constantly being petrified to not step out of our comfort zone, correct, that's exactly what our children are going to do. That's what our girls are going to think that we need to do. So once we become a mother, that's it. You know, we just pour all of our energies into everyone else and don't think about ourselves. And our sons will think that too when they choose to get married, that will be the role of the mother, that they just stay at home. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. Right. But if you have that dream and that passion of doing something else, then I say absolutely go for it, because you are and you will be inspiring your children. But I love that. I love that title that you have just suggested.
Right, I just thought about it. And so, Linda, we've got about, I think, 4 minutes to get to the end of the session. We're really running the clock tight here because the speakers all lined up like planes on Heathrow. So, I had a question. Mothers are also trying to become super moms, right? They're trying to take the child to this pianist, to that skating session, to this ballet dance class. Mm. Don't you think mothers also might like to manage the demand side of the problem, meaning grow children more normally? When I grew as a child, I only read books, went to bed at 9 at night, and we climbed trees occasionally. And that was it. It was like, oh, fun. Yeah. What I'm saying. So in this plentiful world, don't you think they're also clutching at this, that, the other to make a perfect child?
Mm. That's a very good question. And there are so many opportunities out there. And, you know, as a mother, as a parent, you can get overwhelmed because you want the best for your child. And, your child will say, well, can I do horse riding? Can I do ice skating? Can I do this, that, the other? And you try your best to accommodate everything. But there can come a point where your child spends more time outside of the home than they do with you. Right. And, the best learning comes from the home. And I'm totally all for kids, doing activities outside of the home and socializing with other kids to build their confidence. That's great, because like I said, my children do taekwondo. But one of the things that the biggest lessons that we've learned here during the lockdown is that, you know, you can be very creative, and, you know, you get to spend a lot of family time together. And it's not just about being out there and going to, you know, different classes 7 days a week. There needs to be a balance. And like you said, you know, when we were younger, we didn't have those opportunities. And I think we should expose our kids to those outside opportunities, but in moderation, not the fact that it becomes a major part of their life, and that they don't create that home life as well. They don't get that support from the home as well. Right.
So, Linda, now last rapid fire question. You've got exactly 60 seconds to answer this. Right, sorry. But do you think the world's kind of getting better at it? For example, are families getting more supportive around women with ambition? Are spouses or parents showing up to do their bit while you, as a working entrepreneur, go out and do good for the world? I know employers in France allow working mothers to take an extra day off, maybe at a slightly smaller pay cut or something. Do you think there is some flexibility in the system, or?
Yeah, it's like a ripple effect. It's like the sea; it comes in and it goes out, and also a bit like dominoes. You know, once one organisation starts, then the rest follow. It is certainly a lot better than it has been in the past, and it's a progressive step. And, you know, with organisations such as myself and the Women's Economic Forum, you know, to bring that to the forefront of employers' minds, it is getting better. It's getting out there, and I feel that women and mothers are feeling much more confident now to challenge the status quo. You know, if they're not comfortable because they feel they need a bit more time at home and they want to work more flexibly, they feel more comfortable now that they will be supported, and they feel more comfortable to at least engage in the conversation. So it's going in the right direction. It's not perfect, but it's work in progress, positive work in progress.
So on that note, Linda Attrum, thank you very, very much. That was an absolutely brilliant, riveting conversation. And on behalf of the Women Economic Forum, as a token of our appreciation of your genius and your entrepreneurship, we'd like to confer the award of Iconic Woman Creating a Better World for All. So I do hope you accept this, and the award will find its way to you. Thank you again. And
thank you. I graciously accept. Thank you so much. Thank you for the honor. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.